So, does WWE have too much programming? Let's look at just main roster, for example, right? We have Raw and SmackDown, both 3 hours every week. That's 6 hours of television, right? We have Evolve, which is another hour of television. We have NXT, which is another hour of television. That's 8 hours of television. And that's not including main event, right? Or Level Up, which I think are another 2 hours of television. So that's like 10 hours a week, right? At a certain point, I think, especially with how releases have been happening and the fact that I've been talking about talent bloat, despite the fact that there's 10 hours of programming a week, there probably is a fatigue that most fans feel when trying to consume all this content. You have segmented fans, for example, that watch NXT, watch that developmental process, and then have the context for a lot of the people that come up onto the main roster, right? Whereas most people who are just watching the main roster are just watching the main roster. They don't really know that whole ecosystem outside of WWE, right? Or outside of the main roster. So it begs the question whether or not it's really worth having all these programs, I guess little indie feds, because it doesn't seem to really translate to the main roster in terms of success and popularity. Very few of the stars actually cross over from NXT/Evolve, I guess, really have a name, and I guess really that's due to the women's division and how they've been stacking it with some of the top indie talents like around the world, which is kind of similar to what they did with the black and gold NXT back in the day. But despite all of that, I don't have the time to watch everything, right? With the job and school and stuff like that. I don't have, 10 hours during the week really to just dedicate solely to watching wrestling. And that's just the WWE promotion. AEW, right, has Rampage, which is an hour. They have Collision, which I think is an hour or 2 hours. And then they have Dynamite, which is 2 hours. So they have another like 5 to 6 hours of program a week, right? So it's like a full-on like part-time job if you wanted to keep up with AEW and WWE. With hearing the news about Smackdown going to 2 hours in June, which thank God, because SmackDown has definitely been the weaker show ever since that 3 hour increase, and especially since the Netflix stint. I do think Raw has been the better paced show. I think match wise they've been pretty equal. There's a lot of great matches on both shows, but definitely SmackDown will benefit, I think, from going back to that 2 hour pace. Do you guys think that there's like a programming fatigue? Do you think there's too much WWE? Because I certainly do. Let me know in the comments.